Hello and welcome once again to Crazy Comics and Stories. It's me, your charming and delightful old Uncle Rat Bastard. And at the other end of the series of tubes and wires that we call the internets is Joe, Crazy Writer. How you doing today, Joe?
I'm happy. It's Happy National Joe Day.
I did not know it was National Joe Day.
It's a real thing.
It's also National Best Friends Day.
Ooh.
And I want to let everybody know, I love each and every one of you.
Aw.
Except you. You can bite me. Eric Bischoff's best line ever.
Oh, yeah. And then he picked one guy in the audience. Except you.
Yeah,
you
he just picked one guy at random.
Yeah.
Except you. You can bite me.
Yay! Eric can bite me. No. I remember. Did you go with us when we went to, was it the Target Center? And when Eric came out to the ring, he saw somebody with a Blue World Order shirt, and he looked at.
Yes.
I love that. I love that. God, that was what fun. But that's not what we're here to talk about. Although we could talk about wrestling.
We're here to talk about the draft.
Ooh, it's chilly out. Oh, by the way, I know you people are concerned because I know as we record this, apparently Godzilla is attacking New York City. Everything's orange. There's smog. People will say everything smells like smoke. They even said it's dangerous. The little particles are so fine, they're getting through whatever air filters and getting in the buildings. We had smoky skies, and I know people with asthma and that had trouble. But right now it's warm and low humidity, so it's almost perfect outside.
But when the sun gets low on the horizon, the skies are red.
Yes, and Cory runs around screaming. He puts on a gold mask and goes, "I can see everything."
You know what the bad thing is, Joe?
What's that?
The CW just canceled The Flash, so The Flash has died.
I don't know if it was canceled or just we knew it was coming to an end.
No, it was canceled. They told them, hey, this is your last season.
Well, that's something.
The people who created it wanted to do more, but were told, no, you won't. So we've got red skies. We have a dead Flash. Now we need a guy in green showing up going, oh my God, it's so terrible. And it's a crisis on Infinite Earths.
I didn't even know Flash was sick.
But DC's not doing a crisis. We should talk about what DC's doing and what everybody else is doing for August.
Yes. This is, for now, the physical preview show. We don't do digital shit.
You
because
don't
it's
do digital shit.
Well, yeah, but you idiots. Oh, I want to look on my tiny little computer screen instead of just sitting back with a catalog in your hand and flipping through it the way it was intended to be. Not this fancy computer shit. You'll be sorry when that sunspot wipes out all the interwebs and you're going to be going, oh no, my 50,000 comics I have saved digitally either on a disk or the cloud I can't use because there's no electricity. Whatever am I going to do? And I'll be in my basement going, up yours, buddy. I got my omnibuses. They can shield you from harmful rays, you know.
I have
of course,
both.
If you are trying to, yeah, I heard about her. She's not that great. So for now, this is the previews, number 417, June 23. And the corresponding DC Connects is issue number 37. And the Marvels preview is number 21. So if you have them all stacked up, you can play along because this here is interactive. See, that's the other thing. You go digital, we can't play interactive. You ever think of that?
Joe,
no.
You do know that selfish. The podcast is digital, right?
That's not the point. The point is you get to sit here with the previews and read along with us. Or like Angel Medina, just have us on as background noise. We haven't said his name in a while.
And nothing wrong with background noise.
Nope. Well, let's just say when I was garage sailing today, I had a lot of background noise. Don't touch that box until I get to it. Got to get ready for Comic-Con. You know, it's coming up.
There was a Mogwai in your box, wasn't there? On the covers, on the comic side cover is a new Greg Pak comic called Mech Cadets. The epic adventure continues. It is a Netflix animated series and a comic series from Boom Studios. On the spine, we're getting a new Robotech comic from Titan Comics. And on the back is a comic that we talked about in our free comic book day. The Sacrificers by Rick Remender, Max Fumara, and Dave McCraig.
Matter of fact, if you're ready, we can dive right in because that's my first choice from Image. Because I can look at this nice physical catalog. You get a beautiful one page. On top it says it's a dystopian science fiction. Somewhere else it says the expansive world building of stories like Low and Tokyo Ghost meet sci-fi heart of a beloved series, Black Science. Trying to, tie in, or how do you call it, name dropping, I guess. It gives you a list of all the different variant covers. Plus, they give you 3 glorious pages to decide whether or not this is something you'd want to pick up or not.
Or you could read the free comic book day that you got.
Tomorrow is a harmonious paradise thanks to 5 families who make everything perfect for the price of 1 child per household. Now, as that bill becomes due, a son is expected to give everything for a family that never loved him, and an affluent daughter determined to destroy utopia. They both must unite to end one generation's unnaturally protracted reign. And Cory already dropped names on who's doing this. And this one looks pretty good, so I definitely have that on as my first pick for Image. Cory, how about you?
I have a first pick just because of the cover. It is super rare that I buy a comic for the cover. Joe, turn to page 50.
Because last time I did it, I almost threw up.
Joe, turn to page 50.
Sorry, Tim. Tony.
He's gonna puke. He's gonna puke. Local Man Gold one shot. The cover is a homage to Deathmate. Jack comes face to face with his explosive past when his superhero alter ego blasted into a modern day Farmington in a massive cosmic event. Now Local Man has to get his younger, more extreme self back to his own time before he ruins what little life Jack has left. But it won't be easy. Crossjack isn't the only one who's landed in the wrong era, and they're both being hunted by a vengeful hero from the past. Local Man is a series that seems like it's a continuation of an old Image book, but it's not. It is the story of a hero, Crossjack, who has been summarily drummed out of the superhero team he was on and is legally prohibited from being a hero. This is a one shot that ties into that. But I saw that cover and went, oh, I have to buy this. Will it be any good? The Local Man series has been pretty good, but
I actually have it on my pile to be read because I was going to wait for the trade, and I thought, you know what? No, I'm just going to pick it up. Support the guys. Okay, Cory, I gotta. You're a schlub. Did you know that? If you go back to page 38, there's a comic on you called The Schlub. It's action adventure, humorous superheroes. It's like Scumbag meets Deadpool in this cheeky action superhero romp. See,
ooh, it's cheeky.
Kenny Portman, Ryan Segman, art by Terrell Cannon, Mike Spicer, John J. Hill. Bunch of covers, including variant covers. Let's see. Failing dentist Roger Dalton blames the world for his problems until he is body swapped with the world's greatest superhero. Can Roger save Earth and finally prove to his family he's not a loser? Or are we all doomed? Plus you get, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pages, some of them a little smaller, to decide whether or not you want to pick it up or not, which I absolutely love when they do that. I know by September I probably will miss that, but hey, you've got another previews for me to bitterly complain about it until we find out just what the hell's going on in September. What do you got for your second pick?
My next pick is on page 56, the Low Compendium. I want to warn people, this is an expensive month for me.
Oh.
Another Rick Remender book. This is the complete series Low, which is drawn by Drake Cicchini and Dave McCray. In the far future, our sun has begun its inevitable expansion process, scorching Earth's surface with extreme radiation. Humanity is sent to hide in the lowest depths of the sea, waiting in protected dome cities, while probes scour the galaxy for inhabitable planets. Generations later, a return probe finally crashes on Earth's surface, now a hostile and alien place that no human has seen in eons. It falls on Stell Kane, a lone mother and the last scientist to rise from these depths to reunite her shattered family and find salvation for a people who've lost all hope. I love these compendiums. They're like an omnibus, except they're paperback, and it's the entire series in one big book.
We like big books.
So
we like big books, and we cannot lie.
It collects issues 1 through 26, the entire series.
Now, in case you don't want to start a new series, because the first 2 I recommended are like series premieres, you can go to page 42 and look at The Call, which is a 5-issue miniseries. Action, adventure, and horror. Something is Killing the Children meets Super 8 in this perfectly dark coming-of-age story for the fans of the Goonies. Let's see, Kelly Thompson.
What if you hated the Goonies?
That is what's for you, definitely. Matthias D. I can't pronounce your last name, Mata. Let's see. Something, blah, 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 blah. This is an adventure as 5 friends set out to shoot a short film on a forbidden rock near their home the summer before they all go separate ways. But that's not really why they're there. One of them has lied, and that lie will change their lives forever.
Forever.
A lot of different covers to choose from. A very spooky page 43 single shot to look at. And because it's a mini-series, I'm all over that.
My next book, it's a horror comic that I have heard about but have never read. So why not buy the compendium, which has the whole thing? That is Nailbiter by Joshua Williams. 16 of the world's most notorious serial killers were all born and raised in Buckaroo, Oregon. The worst and most infamous blame being Edward Charles Warren, the Nailbiter. What is happening in this small town to create so many serial killers? This has Nailbiter 1 through 30 and the 1-issue crossover with Nailbiter and Hack Slash. Another compendium.
I know. And for me, another miniseries on page 44. The Enfield Gang Massacre. It's crime mystery, historical fiction. It's that Texas blood duo, Chris Condon, Jacob Phillips. They return to Ambrose County, Texas, with an all-new miniseries, 150 years in the past. Gunslinging action meets dark frontier drama in this original Western thriller, as Montgomery Enfield and his gang of outlaws find themselves in the crosshairs of an aging Texas Ranger and a newborn country that's hungry for law. So 6 issues there. And again, if it sounds intriguing and you're not quite like me into the comic aspect, you know it's going to be a graphic novel.
And for me, that is it for Image.
I've got 2 more to cover. Speaking of graphic novels, I was going to point out The Ambassadors on page 51. This is one where I said I wasn't sure if I was going to buy it. I didn't, so I'm going to pick it up as a trade. Excuse me, because that Local Man Gold one-shot is across. Here we go. If I cover it up. Ugh. Anyways, The Ambassador. Mark Miller writes it. Tons of people draw it. You've cracked the superhuman mystery and can give superpowers to 6 different people around the world. Who do you choose? The world's greatest and most ambitious superhero comic needs the world's greatest comic book artist. We got Frank Whiteley, Travis Charez, Olivia Coppel, and a lot more of international superstars. So, and apparently this is on Netflix too. Yes.
It has been a hell of a long time since there's been a Travis Charest comic.
Yeah.
I think this was part of the Mark Miller Netflix deal.
Yep, I think so. And let's see, I'm trying to find on page 58, it's the last one, Nightclub Volume 1. Again, another series I decided to wait for the trade. Another Mark Miller one. You're 17 years old and you've been bitten by a vampire. Do you live in the shadows and drink human blood? Or do you use your newfound gifts for the dream costume superhero life you've always wanted? You're bulletproof. You can crawl up walls. You can turn into mists and bats. Why not have a little fun? Which is probably something I would do. And that's it for me, image-wise, other than, the normal stuff we buy.
I don't follow the current trends in vampire books, but I thought that since like 2008, 2009, if you become before that really, if you become a vampire, you go hang out with high school girls. That's what Angel did in Buffy the Vampire Slayer. It's
all right.
We got to
move on before somebody reports us to the authority. Cory, turn to page 92. We're going into Boom. And then we have Rom. No, I'm sorry. This is Mech Cadets #1. It's a 6-issue miniseries written by Greg Pak, illustrated by Takeshi. I'm sorry, I'm not going to slaughter your name. I mention this not because I'm buying it, because it too is a Netflix series. So if you're interested in either one of these last two I mentioned, do you have anything from Boom, Cory?
I don't think so.
Well, I'm just going to mention
just the regulars.
These are some things I want to point out as I kind of want to do. If you're a Power Ranger fan, there's a Mighty Morphin Power Rangers 30th anniversary special on page 100. Tons of variant covers to choose from, written by a who's who, celebrating 30 years of the Power Rangers. So you definitely want to pick that up. Go to page 103. Oh, wow, look at that wraparound incentive cover. That is insane. And I even like on page 102. I love it when you show some of the different covers. I will probably go for the photo variant, though. I guess because I like photo variants. If you're a Magic the Gathering person, check out page 105, a new miniseries starting up, Magic Planewalkers, Notorious #1. Speaking of Buffy, on the very next page, 106, another miniseries, Buffy the Last Vampire Slayer. Yep, that's all grown up, having taken the mantle as the new Slayer, but with new responsibilities comes new enemies and a mysterious clan that'll do anything to get her, even if it means using her friends as bait. On page 115, you've got We Only Find Them When They're Dead Deluxe Edition. I've been reading this book as a regular trades as they come out, and it's fantastic. Basically, the people, they're on the edge of the universe, and what happens is they're finding these giant corpses of alien gods, and they're very much regulated as to what they can take. They're controlled, they're watched, but Captain Malik is obsessed with being the first to find a living god, and he pushes his crew to the darkest reaches of space. So here's your chance to read it all. This is a deluxe edition, which in any other world, I would call a compendium. And last but not least, on page 124, you've got Jim Henson's The Dark Crystal Creations Myth, the complete collection. A little pricey, $75, but this is the first of 4 definitive Dark Crystal hardcover collections. If you got a Dark Crystal fan, and my daughters are, this is something to consider picking them up. You want to order it now, it's going to come out on October 15th. So, and that's it for Boom. And after Boom, well,
Dynamite!
Right. Anything for you, Mr. Strode?
I have conflicted feelings on Fire and Ice #1.
I was going to ask you about that because it's on my list, but you go ahead.
So, Fire and Ice. This is more than 4 decades ago. Two iconic creators came together to bring to the silver screen the amazing new world of magic and adventure. In their classic animated film, Fire and Ice, the legendary Frank Frazetta and famed director Ralph Bakshi, together with screenwriters Roy Thomas and Gary Conway, created a single vision of fantasy and danger, blah, blah, blah. Before the fire waned and the ice spread across the world, before everything you know about this unforgettable animated movie came to be, there was the before times when evil might still be blunted. In Fire and Ice #1, Bill Willingham joins forces with Leonard Menko, making his triumphant return to comics, and a new legend is about to be born. Boy, Roy Thomas wanted to write this. And he said in a recent, what it does, he's got a agent, and he recently told his agent that a while back, Dynamite Studios kind of tapped him and said, hey, would you want to write more Fire and Ice? We're thinking of picking up the license for it. And he said, sure. And gave them a couple ideas for not, here's a script or here's a plot, but I'd like to do this, that, and the other. Well, one of the things was a prequel about how it was all set up. Lo and behold, Bill Willingham is doing a prequel to the movie. First off, this movie was a massive bomb. I don't know why it was a massive bomb. I've seen it, and while Bakski's animation is okay, the story is a mess. And Roy Thomas said it's because they took a 200-page script and cut it down to 90 pages. So huge chunks were left out. Roy and Gary Conway were not involved in the editing, et cetera, et cetera. I would think now it says it's based on Frank Frazetta and Ralph Bakshi. What it was, they came to Roy Thomas and Gary Conway after they'd worked on Conan and said, hey, we have the rights to these Frazetta paintings. You want to write a movie based on them? They did. Frazetta basically they took Frazetta paintings. Gary Conway and Roy Thomas, who are both still with us, came up with the idea. I think it would be a much nicer thing to give Roy Thomas and Gary Conway first crack at this. And I don't know how the rights are. I know that Bill Willingham has done some very good work in the past. So this is one, I'm not going to pre-order it. I'm going to wait and see, first off, if it's any good. And second, if Dynamite does right by Roy Thomas and Gary Conway, who are both still around and both still writing and both want to work on it.
I wouldn't hold your breath. Although I will probably buy the Virgin signed by Sarah Frazetta.
I will say
I do like those signed books. I don't think I would go for the CGC graded one, but depending on the price of that's part of that Atlas comic lines that I've been raving about. It would go well with the Frank Frazetta one I got signed.
I will say this. When they had the Zorro rights, remember they wanted to do a Lady Rawhide series. And they kind of forgot that the character was created and still owned. Don McGregor created the character and still owns a piece of it. So they didn't hire him to write the character, they did do right by him by cutting him a check. So we'll see what happens.
For everything else, on page 134, there's a new Vampire Dracula, Rage #1, picking up where Vampirella Year 1 left off. And the Vampirella Dracula Rage presents Vampirella as you've never seen her before, like every other series. What I love about Dynamite, of course, even with Fire and Ice, they give you a bunch of previews of the covers. There's a couple page articles. In this case, page 136, 137 has an interview with the creators. Fire and Ice, page 132, 133. Again, writers Bill Willingham and Plush Bakshi and Frazetta families talk about how it all came together. If you're prone to busts, get it? Vampirella Dawn, to the bustiest bust you'll ever bust. On page 144 to 145, you get all the fun things, a bunch of trades and hardcovers. There's a bunch of collector statues, the collectible coins that I like. On page 150, Disney Villains 80s is back. You get no signed one with this, but a bunch of variant covers. And if you're just like the Maleficent one they had earlier, a couple of pages with interviews. And finally, on page 164, there's your Darkwing Duck Foul Play Collections, reprinting his all new adventures for your Darkwing Duck fans. There's also a signed hardcover by Amanda, I think it's Dybert. So there you go. You get a lot of fun and a lot of. Whoops. Sorry. My computer's acting odd. Bad computer. Don't make me use a sledgehammer.
Yeah, because that would end the podcast for you.
The pod as we know it.
I do want to point out on page 169, Brandon Sanderson's White Sand Omnibus hardcover. This was a fantasy series by Brandon Sanderson and Rick Hoskin, adapting some of his books. Brandon Sanderson is a fantasy writer who is probably best known for the guy who wrote the last 3 Wheel of Time books. When the original author, Robert Jordan, passed away, he had left all his notes to Brandon Sanderson to finish the series in a book. And Sanderson looked over the notes and said, there's so much I need. There's so much here that it's going to take 3 books. And you might be jumping on early because Lord knows George R.R. Martin's not getting any younger. And the Game of Thrones books aren't done yet.
Well, give him time. Him and Straczynski are probably out having a beer.
Probably.
And that's
They've
it
had
for
a lot of beers.
For Dynamite.
Shall we go to DC?
All right. Let me grab my DC catalog.
They are still doing Night Terrors.
So for me, the first one is on page 16 because I'm waiting for hopefully an omnibus on Night Terrors. It sounds interesting, but I'm not going all in for those 2 months. I'm tempted on a few of them, but I figure I'll just sidestep it. So on page 16, you've got The Penguin #1. The only reason I'm interested in this is because Tom King is writing it. Revenge is for the birds, he says, after retiring to Metropolis following his death. Speaking of which, I didn't even know he was sick. On page 17, you got Penguin 0, which apparently covers the death which occurred in Batman 125. So like me, if you're not hip on it, you can pick up the 0 going to the #1 because Oswald Cobblepot finds himself forced back into the unpredictable and violent Gotham City underworld as a pawn of the United States intelligence community. Gotham's criminal element has been evolving since he was last in the city, with his bastard twin children ruling the Iceberg Lounge. And what of the man he framed for his death? Batman? Is the Penguin walking into a death sentence? So I am definitely interested in this one.
For me, you got to go to page 27.
27. Nort.
Nort's Illustrated Swimsuit Edition. You may know Nort as the bumbling Green Lantern who protects Space Sector 68. Then again, you may not know Nort at all. Whatever the case, get ready to see him in his newest role as host and proprietor of this very special Swimsuit Edition comic. Join our favorite fuzzball as he showcases some of the best swimsuit covers and most swimtacular stories, from Flash in the Speed Force Speedo to Batman in a Bat-Ping suit. This very special one-shot is summer fun from the bikini top to the bikini bottom. So 48-page one-shot, whole bunch of artists, looks to be silly. And I have to admit, the Amazing Heroes swimsuit special was one of my favorite comics that came out every year in the early 90s. And it was, some of it was, cheesecake poses. But a lot of it was, we're going to take these characters and put them on the beach and be silly with it. You had independent creators, you had people who would do Popeye and olive oil, and they just, rather than be, oh, we're going to be super sexy, it became very super silly. And this one looks to be very silly with some cheesecake stuff in it. And I am all for the silly.
Oh, yeah.
Goofy comics forever.
And a slightly more serious side, one thing I used to love about growing up in comics was annual season. And we've got annual season coming, and you want something special going on in your annuals. And I don't normally read the Superman titles, but looking at the two annuals they're offering, one on page 18, one on page 19, you get the Superman annual, where Lois Lane is now editor-in-chief of the Daily Planet, but at heart, she'll always be an investigative reporter. And lately, Metropolis has had a whole new set of secrets she must uncover, even if it means investigating her own husband, Superman. Then across from it, Action Comic presents Doomsday Special. Doomsday is a creature beyond reason, the only force in the universe strong enough to kill Superman. Doomsday, the living embodiment of death, destruction, and evolution. In the wake of Dark Crisis and the Lazarus Planet, King Doomsday now sits on a throne of skulls across a river of blood, holding court over the demons that swarm in the depths of hell, and he may have just found a way into the land of the living. It's now up to Supergirl and Martin Manhunter to drive the beast back, see that he never returns to our earthly plane again. A few different variant covers to choose from, but for just one-shots, they actually sound kind of fun to read.
For me, that I don't have any other regular comics, but it gets into the trade paperbacks such as DC Horror Presents Sergeant Rock vs. the Army of Dead. This is the Bruce Campbell, Eduardo Rizzo miniseries, collected in a hardcover with a cover by Gary Frank, and it's Evil Dead by Bruce Campbell. Now, here's the weird thing that I have found out, Joe.
What's that?
You know why they don't call it Sergeant Rock versus the Evil Dead?
No idea.
Because Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2, the rights are held by one company, and Army of Darkness is held by another company. So that's why you will never get a complete Evil Dead box set or anything, because MGM holds the rights to the Army of the Dead and Army of Darkness. So that's why you're going to get an Army of the Dead series from DC, and yet there are Evil Dead comics being published by other people. Movie rights are weird.
I'm glad you uncovered that. Of course, back on page 26, you can get Catwoman and Poison Ivy uncovered. They're basically a couple. These are the type of books I usually don't buy, but I would love to buy, because it's basically covers a who's who of people who have done covers for Catwoman and Poison Ivy. It's not expensive as one-shots go. All the covers are cardstock, and you got different variant covers by different people, including Frank Cho and Oliver Coipel and Stanley Artgerm. I know a lot of people are picking his exclusive variant covers up from various retailers that have the exclusivity to it. So if you like art, or you like the covers, and since a lot of times I wish there were times I could buy just the covers, this might be something to take a peek at.
If you go to page 39, the Dead Boy Detectives omnibus.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, that's definitely on my list.
Dead Boy Detectives were a pair of characters in Sandman who got spun off into a number of series, including, let's see, Children's Crusade 1 and 2, Sandman Presents Dead Boy Detectives 1 through 4, Dead Boy Detectives 1 through 12, and Jill Thompson's Dead Boy Detectives, which was so wonderful. It's also got all these stories from all over the place, 800 pages, $100, covered by Chris Bacalo. Yeah. These are wonderful. These are wonderful. Joe?
On my maybe list. Now, I read a copy of Deceased. I'm not big on zombie books, but I read the first issue, and I actually enjoyed it. And I have no idea how far deceased goes if it's just a quick mini series, but they do have the deluxe edition for $40 back on page 34. And I would like to read the rest of the series. So again, I don't know if I'm going to go deluxe or wait for a trade, because that's middle class poverty, having to wait for the trade paperback of anything.
I know that you like those facsimile editions, so
I do.
Go to page 44.
I don't.
The third issue of Omega Men, which was the first appearance of Lobo, a very different Lobo from the one we know.
Which is why I probably unless you're going to go out and buy an original, facsimiles are fun. I don't think I'm going to pick up this one because I remember, oh my God, first appearance of Lobo, I have it. And I reread it and it goes, it's not the Lobo that we know and love.
Yeah.
But it is first appearance anyways. Same thing like with Deadpool. When he showed up, he wasn't the merc with the mouth. He was just coolly drawn.
He was just, he was a Deathstroke ripoff.
So I have nothing else DC-wise because, like I said, the Night Terrors, I'm waiting for the Omnibus. DC, you're listening? Omnibus, please. I imagine that might be 2 omnibuses. Probably the regular series, and I don't know, they could shove it into one huge one. I'm looking at my Hellblazer omnibus sitting over there on its own shelf, lest it break through with all the other ones.
I'm going to be picking up iZombie because I missed out on the first time it was printed as an omnibus. It is by Chris Robinson, art by Michael Allred, turned into a CW series, but Gwen Dillon doesn't remember too much about her life before she died, but she does know she'll lose what little memory she has left if she doesn't consume fresh brains once a month. So after landing a job as a gravedigger in her hometown of Eugene, Oregon, she makes herself at home in one of the crypts where she can live her afterlife in peace. Or so she thinks. This series lasted 28 issues. They had it planned out for up to 100. So when they got the word that the series was ending with issue 28, they kind of crammed a whole lot of plot in the last 3 or 4 issues.
And I'm telling you, if I had the money, and I don't, I would go for the Batman Golden Age Omnibus. I'd go for the Wonder Woman Golden Age Omnibus.
They are up to
Silver
10.
Age.
They're up
I know.
To 10.
I just don't have the money, honey.
And have they done the Batman Bronze Age? No. And the Justice League Bronze Age. Those 3 volumes sold out, each selling for $700 to $800.
DC, you should probably think like Marvel does. Marvel notices something goes up in price crazy on the secondary market, means there's a demand for it. If there wasn't, why, you could probably find it for $5 or like $3 on the DC one I'll be talking about when I get to Freaking and Geeking. Isn't that marvelous?
Speaking of Marvel.
Oh, yeah, that's right. They're next.
Let's go to why my bill for comics is going to be a goddamn fortune.
The first one coming up, I was not sure I was going to pick up until I read a preview online. See, I do read sometimes previews online. Page 2, Uncanny Avengers. It's all tied into the Fall of the X, which I'm kind of sidestepping because I will pick up the trades or omnibuses or whatever because it's too blanking huge for my wallet. But the Fall of the X calls for the return of the Avengers Unity Squad. Innocent people and world leaders are dead after simultaneous attacks on the U.S. and Korean governments, and that means one thing: it's time for a new squad of Avengers. False flag attacks means to whip up anti-mutant hysteria. They're unfolding, and hey, some of Steve Rogers' best friends are mutants. The new Unity Squad will be Captain America, Rogue, Deadpool, Quicksilver, Psylocke, Monet. They must solve the mystery of who the new murderous Captain Krakoa, stop his team of killers from igniting the fires of a new world war. And almost every comic this month has a bonus page of the upcoming Jonathan Hickman, Who Are the Gods? And I don't know if they're like tied in, where like this one, that one, or the other, if they're just unique to an issue, or if they're all the same one. We'll find out, but you've been warned.
We get a new Thor series. This one is written by
Al Ewing,
drawn by Martin Coloco, has a cover by Alex Ross. If I were to buy the variant cover, I'd of course buy the George Perez variant cover. In Norse myths, they called him the Thunderer. Vril has he been called. The Herodi. The gods know him as Asgard's king, keeper of Molnor, hero of the tales. When injustice grips the earth and ancient powers bring down the sky, he fights for those who cannot. And when the tale is done, we will know what that cost him. This is the story of the immortal Thor. This is the same guy who wrote the Immortal Hulk.
Yes.
Do you need to know any more?
No.
No.
Wait, is the other Thor series done?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Both Thor and Hulk, those series are done. The people who started them left, so they brought in other writers to kind of wrap them up.
Oh.
They were not as popular as they thought they would be.
Okay. So I do want to mention one thing. Every so often I like to talk about if you're investing in comics, because people do. You know what's been going up on price crazily in the back issue market?
What?
Blank variant covers.
Oh, yeah.
And it's not because they're blank, it's because people want them to go get art on them. You know, even me, when Supergirl has a cover, a blank cover, I order like 10 or 20 because that's what I want. I want to get an artist to do a Supergirl cover. Whether or not it's the artist doing the issue is not relevant. I just want the art on the cover. So if you're prone to sit back and count your comics and watch them go up, there you go. You got blank covers with almost every book that's ever coming out from Marvel and DC. At least the number ones. The next one for me, again, I talked about the annuals, and since Marvel they only put the numbers on one page. But starting on page 14, you've got the Contest of Chaos. I'm not sure if I'm going to buy these or I'm going to wait for a graphic novel, but if I am, Spider-Man annual, Iron Man, Fantastic Four, and Moon Knight, they're all tied together. And Agatha Harkness is building a new Darkhold, and she's pitting Earth's mightiest heroes against each other to do it. So you got Spider-Man versus Wolverine, Storm versus Iron Man, Ghost Rider versus Human Torch, and then Moon Knight versus, oh my gosh, I hate Taguchi? I'm sorry, I don't speak.
Turducken?
I'm not sure, but he's there on page 17, so. And I believe, didn't they set this up last month with a one-shot?
Yes.
Okay, so there you go.
We've got Marvel Age 1000.
Again?
I don't know why it's another great big anthology book.
Yeah.
Because the Marvel Comics 1000 did so well.
Yes. So basically what will happen is pick your variant cover and then go to your big local comic book store who probably ordered tons of these, and they'll probably do like I've done with almost every issue that's ever come out, Marvel and DC. They'll have like a pack of 10 of them for $8. Yeah. Not the real expensive ones. And again, we don't have pictures of all the variant covers, but if you were to choose one, Cory, what would you go with?
Let's see what ones
they got a George Perez. There's a Virgin Perez. Frank Miller's got a Hidden Gem variant.
That Frank Miller one is going to cost a fortune, and
Frank
people
Land.
are very angry about it.
Oh, is it already? Or are you talking the Ghost Rider one?
I'm talking any of the covers that Frank Miller's doing.
Oh.
People do not like Frank Miller's new art style, whereas I look at it as, if you look at his art has been evolving in this direction. If you don't like it, that's fine. But you can't say, Frank Miller used to draw so much better. No, he didn't. Those pictures that people are putting up, like the cover of Wolverine #1, he did the layout for that. Joel Rubinstein did the hard pencil and inking. He just did layouts. You like Joe Rubinstein's art. Frank Miller has always been very sketchy, very blocky. He's very much following in the footsteps of Will Eisner and Alex Nino, which is eliminate lines, eliminate. You can say you don't like it. To say it's bad art, you're wrong. I love Allred's art. I love Perez's art. Ryan Stegman's also really good. I don't know, Joe. I don't know.
I'll buy them all. I was on page 28, your checklist.
I buy the book, it'll have them all.
Oh, yeah. On page 28, Fall of X checklist. No. On page 36 is the Ghost Rider Wolverine Weapons of Vengeance Alpha #1 of 4 with the infamous variant cover by Frank Miller. I have zero interest in the series. I'm going to do my damnedest to get a hold of that cover. I don't even know if Discount Comic Book Service is offering it, because sometimes they won't offer the super incentive covers, because I think what happens is everybody wants them and then they have to end up canceling, and it's just bad for the cash flow.
Well, that they have to order. Don't you have to order like 500 of some of these?
They're
stuck with thousands of them that they've paid.
I do know last month that Marvel sent out their list faster than it was probably supposed to, because behind the scenes what they did is we had to order last month books that we're talking about this month.
Yeah.
And if you weren't paying attention, you'll see occasionally on the bottom it'll, like, you go back 2 pages, there's a classified #1. Say what? Classified? Yeah, I'll buy Death of, shock maybe, and it wasn't. But classified? And if I got to order it this month, why should I bother? Because I'm committed for 4 issues.
Well, it does say that they will stay. It says stay tuned for more information in July. Well, it's already leaked.
Oh.
It's a Ms. Marvel by G. Willow Wilson.
I'm shocked. Shocked I can't. Okay, I can skip that. So.
Yeah, but G. Willow Wilson's the creator. G. Willow Wilson's very good. I'm buying the trade, of course.
Yeah, that's what that came out meaner than I meant. I mean, I'll just pick. Well, what I'll probably do is go to the library, fight all the kids that are dying to read Ms. Marvel and Miles Morales, Black Panther. You know, the books that everybody's telling me don't sell, that have no demand. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm getting ahead of myself. I got a rant coming. Anyways, let's see. Oh, I'm sorry. We kind of blended together on books we're recommending. What do you got next, Cory?
Next book that I have that I'm recommending is Marvel Voices. I love these books. They come out. They're big anthologies. This one is just all X-Men stories by Greg Pak, Al Ewing, Jay Edelin, Jan Bazuda, Jethro Morales, Nita Vacuba, William Stantos. I love these because they're short stories. They're usually by newer creators or creators I haven't heard of. And it's a good way to see, oh, I like this person's art. I like the way this person puts a story together. Kind of I don't want to say a sampler, but a good anthology gives you, I would say if 50% of it is good stories, it's good, but it's also a way to see a lot of new artists because they usually have newer artists doing these anthology books. You also don't need to have read 52 other comics.
Oh, yeah. I like just picking them up when I see them in a comic store, kind of as a thank you to that comic store. Because I love going into a comic store, and if I got nothing else I'm going to buy, I'll pick up one of these 100-page anthologies, which I would think those comic stores would be happy to see a $10 comic going out the door.
Yep.
Page 44 has this month's facsimile editions, and I am down for all 3 of these. Giant Size X-Men #1. Again, which will be fun. I might have it. Is this? So I might not have to pick this one up if I must have it. I've picked up all these. Amazing Spider-Man 300. I would recommend buying this because based on the Hulk 181 that keeps coming out, it too will go up in value because if you don't have $3,000-$4,000 to buy a mint copy, this will be the only way you'll be able to pick it up. Underneath it, of course, Werewolf by Night #33, which has the first appearance of Moon Knight. Another book. Well, this is round 2. So this is part 2. So 32 was the first part. Thank you, Marvel, for parting up the second part.
So there we go. See, I think that was it for regular comics.
Before you jump into trades, I got a couple more. Right across from page 45, Marvel Unleashed. Kraven unleashes the beasts. Because Kraven abducts Lockjaw at the same local scientist mixed up at the same time. A local scientist mixed up with AIM goes missing. It's up to Throg, Frog of Thunder, Redwing the Falcon, Chewie the Cat, Flurkin, Lucky the Pizza Dog, Bats the Ghost Dog, and their scrappy new ally D-Dog. Yeah, I wonder where D-Dog's coming from to save the day. Oh, you got me there. For you Strange Academy people, let's see, we're going to jump to page 75. Jumping through a lot of things. And there you've got Strange Academy, Miles Morales. This is not done by the original Strange Academy team, but they are continuing the school back in session. They're doing a school field trip to New York City to throw down against Brooklyn Visions Academy in the Multiverse Math Bowl. This is chapter 1 of a thrilling 3-part saga. They're basically one-shots. Miles Morales is in it. I kind of like the idea that they're continuing with this because you think, okay, these guys are not masters of the mythical arts yet. So even if Scotty Young isn't going to continue it, and I have no idea if he is or not, this is a good way to just keep class in session. Then on page 80, I'm picking up Star Wars Return of the Jedi, Max Rebo #1, but not for the reason you think. Cory, did you ever watch Robot Chicken?
Yes.
Did you see the one where they were doing it and Max Rebo was in it?
Yes.
My kids and I laughed our asses off at the way they did Max Rebo. He was like a stereotypical jazz man. Oh, man, you blew up my gig, man. I got to make it to the gig, man. And meanwhile, down in the Sarlacc pit, hey, Boba Fett and the first guy who fell down there. Hey, jazz man, you want to send me a rope? Rebo looks at the rope. Who are you talking to? There ain't no one up here. There ain't no rope. I got to make it to my gig, man. So he's going across the desert. Oh, I got to make it to the gig. He makes it to the bar, and who's there? Doot, 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 doot. Oh, man, you gave away my gig. It was 30 minutes, man. That's like nothing in jazz time. Come on, man. We love it so much. I've got the action figure, and I pull it out every Christmas so we can just sit there. Hey, man, we got to do some Christmas jazz, man. So I'm picking up one each, and I'm going to put them in my daughter's Christmas stocking. You got to make it to the gig, man. And if that ain't a reason to do it, I don't know what is. All right, Cory, you were talking about this is going to be I'm going to have it to give plasma month.
This is a wallet buster month. Let's go to the hardcovers and other collected editions. Judgment Day Omnibus. This is the crossover from last year, the complete Avengers, X-Men, Eternals epic. Mostly done by Karen Gillan, but boy, all the other people who pitched in. It's got the Axe, Eve of Judgment, Judgment Day, Immortal X-Men, X-Men Red, Death to the Mutants, X-Force, X-Men, Wolverine, Marauders, Fantastic Four, Avengers, AXE, Avengers, and Amazing Spider-Man, X-Men, Iron Fist, Star Fox, Captain Marvel, Eternals, and Judgment Day Omega. 904 pages.
For 100. So which cover are you going to get? Gleason or the...
I always get the direct market only cover unless the main cover is something very special, because I like the fact that they don't have as many of the direct market cover.
And what's funny is that it doesn't matter. You don't find omnibuses at Barnes & Noble.
Yes, you do.
Oh, I haven't seen them.
Oh, I went to the Eden Prairie one.
There? Oh, no.
I went to the Eden Prairie, and they were rearranging everything, and they had, some Marvel omnibuses there.
Ooh.
But also the regular covers are the ones that are sold through Amazon. Amazon sells a shit ton of these.
Yeah, because they're usually discounted. So this one's on my maybe list, because as we start getting into the regular other books, there's a lot of stuff, including the one across from it. That's on my maybe list.
We have Devil's Reign Omnibus, not the Devil's Reign from the 90s, which was a crossover between Marvel and Top Cow. No, this is the Chip Zdarsky story about how...
Marvel, Top Cow, I would buy that omnibus if you want to, I mean, come on, we got a ROM and Micronauts omnibus. Make it so.
This is the end of the Wilson Fisk as the mayor of New York story. And it's 656 pages with all the crossovers for $100. Again, I am buying the direct market cover, which actually is a much better cover. Then I passed them by the first time, Joe.
I did too.
But I think I need to get them. That's right. They are reprinting the Clone Saga and the Ben Reilly Saga.
It was painful going through it the first time. I think I'd rather go back and read The Deathmate. In the beginning, it was good.
And this is the, volume 1, 1,240 pages. And when you look, it's like 6 issues of Web of Spider-Man, 6 issues of Spider-Man, 6 issues of the Spectacular Spider-Man, 6 issues of Amazing, blah, 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 blah. Oh, my God, there was so many comics that tied into this.
Don't like about
and then the Ben Reilly thing, I did not realize that there was enough Ben Reilly as Spider-Man to last over, I think it's either 2 or 3 omnibuses.
Yeah. What I don't like about these big omnibuses, and because I'm reading the 0 Hour one from DC, they crack when you open them. I hate that. I love the omnibus format. The art's big. It's great to have everything there. But, oh, man, I think in the years from now, people are going to discover their omnibus is falling apart because I don't think those spines are made that well. Be that as it may, we're not even halfway through the omnibuses offered this month.
They're reprinting a few more, but the next new one is the Spider-Man by Chip Zdarsky omnibus, which has his regular run on Spectacular Spider-Man, the Spider-Man Life Story miniseries, as well as the annual. And it's 928 pages. I did not realize he had written that much Spider-Man, but I love his Spider-Man. Spider-Man Life Story is one of the best stories. Not just Spider-Man, one of the best superhero stories of the last 5 years. Absolutely loved that story. And then the annual. It's such a shame that they did the annual after the hardcover had been put out, because the annual tells the same story from J. Jonah Jameson's point of view. And it's so good. That's why I'm picking up this omnibus. Then we have one I'm on the fence about.
Me too.
X-Men The Hidden Years omnibus, which reprints the 22-issue Hidden Years story, the Fantastic Four story 102 to 104, which was Jack Kirby bringing Magneto over to fight the Fantastic Four, which happened after the X-Men was canceled, and then Amazing Adult Fantasy number 14, which has a mutant story in it. Why am I on the fence about this? I liked the story. I didn't love it. And I don't know if it's good / bad, but one of the things that Marvel did after this series was over, they kind of said, yeah, this made too many changes, so we're just going to kind of ignore it. Because during this period, Byrne had a tendency to rewrite stories of people he personally did not like, such as Roy Thomas and Gary Conway and anybody else who was writing Marvel after Stan Lee stepped away. So there's a lot of rewriting of history, and Marvel just kind of said, yeah, we don't need to, this is too many retcons that are damaging and invalidate stories, and we don't do these get backs anymore. Say what you want about Joe Quesada kind of saying we're not going to write, that he didn't much care for stories that were based on stories, and Tom Brevoort is very much against stories based on stories. And what that means is, I'm going to do there was this story that was done in Fantastic Four 132, and I'm going to write a story about why that wasn't what really happened. No, just move forward. We're going to move forward. We're not going to do stories about stories. And I like the fact that they're going to say, we're not going to rewrite the history. We're done rewriting the history. If you pitch a story where you're rewriting history, we're not going to accept it. We will take a story that smooths out and clarifies history, such as the Grand Design books. But if you're going to do a thing where, yeah, I don't like the fact that the Vision and Scarlet Witch got married, so I'm going to do a story that undoes all of that. No, we're not doing that anymore. No more get backs. And this was very much a series of get backs. Next one is one that I'm not getting, but you probably are.
Oh,
Joe?
Yeah. New Mutants Omnibus Volume 3. Because I've got the other two, and I enjoyed the living snot out of reading these. And this covers New Mutants up to issue 85, Annual 1, Spellbound 4, Power Pack crossover and Uncanny X-Men, Exterminators 1 through 4, plus material from Marvel Comics Presents, Marvel Fanfare, Marvel Superheroes, and X-Men Odd Men Out one shot. I am prone to want to pick up the regular cover, not necessarily the direct market one, because I like the New Mutants cover versus the Fight Magneto and Hellshaw cover. So, although like you said, direct market covers are pretty sweet. And believe it or not, that's the end of the omnibuses, but we're not done with hardcovers and trades.
No, because then there's Miracle Man by Gaiman and Buckingham, the Silver Age trade paperback, which reprints the Miracle Man story that came after Miracle Man by Gaiman and Buckingham, the Golden Age. There's Golden Age, Silver Age, and I think the last one is Modern Age. But this is the comic that you were waiting 30 years for, because 2 issues came out and then we didn't get any more issues for 30 years. Nope. Oh, what a mess. Joe, do you have any others that are jumping out at you?
Not really, because everything else I bought in comic form, and I'm not prone to want to replace them.
For me, one of the books I'm getting is the Star Wars Darth Vader Black, White, and Red Treasury Edition.
Big.
Yeah, these are bigger than normal comics. The Black, White, and Red are basically, they only use red as the only color. These are short stories, very much dominated by the art. And we've got art by Leonard Kirk, Peach Momoku, Klaus Janson, Daniel Warren Johnson, Paul Davidson, Danny Earls, and more. And then I have not gotten my paper copies yet because they're in my next. Oh, there is a Silver Surfer Ghostlight, written by John Jennings, penciled by Valentine D. Landreau. This story I've been reading on Marvel Unlimited. It is so good. A ghost from the past returns to haunt Norrin Radd. Joe, do you remember the Silver Surfer story in the original run where there's a lone scientist who accidentally calls the stranger to Earth, and then he has to sacrifice himself to save the world from the stranger?
I don't.
This is a sequel to that.
Oh.
The surfer thought he buried his friend, the human named Al Harper, years ago, but he thought wrong. Can the surfer save Al from succumbing to his newfound cosmic abilities? And who or what transformed Al into the otherworldly ghost light? Eisner Award winner John Jennings and acclaimed artist Valentine D. Landreau introduce a Marvel superhero 54 years in the making. Can even these two cosmic powerhouses save the town of Sweetwater? This is such a great story. It fits perfectly with what Stan Lee and John Buscema did in that original Silver Surfer, where no, it's the superheroics are kind of in the background for the human drama. And I absolutely love this story. It's not completed yet, but this is one I'm reading it on Marvel Unlimited and have said, yeah, when this comes out in a collected edition, I want to have it because I'm going to read this more than once. I'm going to read it over and over and over and over. There is a trade paperback of the original Miracle Man story by the original writer. But it also has stuff from the Marvel Man special, A1 #1, and the all-new Marvel Man annual #1. So if you did not pick this up as a omnibus, pick this up as a trade paperback because this is one of the best superhero stories ever written. ever. For Epic Collections, we get the Yesterday Quest for the Avengers, which reprints the Korvac saga. We get new printings of a whole bunch of stuff. One of the things I see every so often that people are saying, oh, I paid $100 for this Epic collection because it's out of print. Don't. Marvel will always reprint the Epic collections. It's a line of books that they will be keeping in print. That's the whole reason for it. We do get a new Venom collection, which is volume 4. They are starting the 90s Ghost Rider, but they're not starting it as a #1. It's nope. The 90s Ghost Rider is volume 6 in the Ghost Rider Epic collection. We get a Guardians of the Galaxy Epic collection, which has the Annihilation Conquest Star-Lord series and then the first 12 issues of the Guardians of the Galaxy. So this is one of the modern era Epic collections. We get a second Hawkeye collection, and you're probably thinking to yourself, Hawkeye only had one series. No, this is all the stories from Solo Avengers because he was the lead on that. X-Men Epic Collection Proteus trade paperback. This reprints everything leading up to the Fate of the Phoenix. Was basically, this is the stuff that made John Byrne. This is right after John
Why was
Byrne
he so
took
angry?
over. Who?
Well, you said it made him burn.
You know what makes John Byrne?
What's that?
You know what burns his ass?
What's that?
Flame about 3 feet high.
Sorry, folks. These are the jokes.
These are the jokes, and you need to put up with them.
Yes.
We get a new Marvel Verse book for Kraven the Hunter because he's getting his own movie. And for the Mighty Marvel Masterworks, which are the small Masterwork reprints, we get X-Men Volume 3, which is when it was written by a brand new Roy Thomas, who hadn't written a comic before, so Stan put him on the lowest selling superhero book, and art by Werner Roth, who looked at Kirby art once in a while. These are not good stories, kids. These are good stories. Matter of fact, when you go back and you read that Banshee story, you're going to want to slap everybody involved because, oh my God, is it terrible. They get a Wolverine, kind of an introduction to Wolverine that reprints some of the kid-friendly Wolverine books, the kid-friendly X-Men villain stuff, and that is your Marvel.
All right. And now,
by the way, I did get my DCB service, just put up the spreadsheet. I just did Marvel, and it's already over $400. I'm going to need to be taking some overtime.
Yep. Me, I got to sell a bit more on the eBays. I've been cracking open them Lady Death Mysteries boxes I've got.
Ooh.
I know. Isn't it great?
Now, here's the thing. Are the things inside worth more than you paid for the mystery?
Yes.
Okay. Because if they weren't, I would feel very cheated.
Yeah. I mean, they're not. I've only ever had 2 that were, oh my sweet stars and crackers. They were incredible. One of them was a metal cover, which are very rare. At least in this case, they were. You can actually buy some of them for $100. And then I have what they call their BP copies, which are Brian Pluto's personal copies. I think he keeps 5 or 10, and then he X them out. And those are rarer than anything else. Most of the time, you're finding things that are 1 in 40, 1 in 50, which are fairly rare. But I haven't had much luck. I mean, the 2 I got were really lucky, but I haven't had like the original sketch or the 1 in 1, that type of thing. But hope remains eternal. So now,
these
Cory,
are the, what are they called? The featured.
Who knows? I have one question for you, Cory. Do you like Robotech?
I read the comics. These are the deluxe publishers. I read the comic. I never got to see the anime when it was on because I live near Peoria, Illinois. They're not going to be showing that.
Well, then here's your chance. Titan, page 204. Robotech, Rick Hunter, #1. Different variant covers to pick from. You can also get the Robotech collection underneath it. I'm not a Robotech fan. I just wanted to point it out in case you are. Anything else from Titan that catch your eye?
No,
Other
I
than
want to.
the Conan stuff like you're normally picking up.
Oh, yeah, Titan. Let's see on page 207. Quentin by Tarantino. In this first-person account, Amazing Azemni, who that's obviously a fake name, takes us through the life and the story of this iconic auteur from his humble beginnings as a video shop clerk to his rise through iconic indie blockbusters all the way to global superstar. I like Quentin Tarantino movies. I'm interested to see what this will be, since it is pretty much just an original graphic novel. Have never heard of the creator before. The art looks okay. But Joe, turn to page 209.
209. More Conan.
That is the greatest variant cover I've ever seen. Conan #2, variant cover by Dan Parent, parroting the old Archie, Betty and Veronica, where they're all three drinking from the same milkshake. It's Conan with a brunette and a blonde drinking from a skull
of his enemies. Yes.
I'm not a variant cover guy, but that's one that I might get just to kind of just to show off.
So you don't let nobody in your compound.
Just for me. I also want to point out another thing from Titan, and that is they are putting out books. They are reprinting on page 220. They are reprinting the adaptation of the Conan the Barbarian movie that was written by Elsbrage de Camp and Lynn Carter back when the movie came out. So they also, I believe they're the ones who printed the new Conan novel that came out a while back. Back in the 80s and 90s, you got a new Conan novel every 2 months. Now it's been years, but Titan has picked up the rights and they're going to be putting out new Conan novels. Joe?
The next of the, were they premier publishers?
Yes.
For me would be Opus, who's now moved up. I don't know if you have anything in between.
I have something from Ablaze.
Oh, okay. What do you got?
On page 228.
Oh.
Osamu Tezuka's 100 Tales. Osamu Tezuka was one of the first manga artists. He's considered the godfather of manga. Other people call him the god of manga. This is a book that has never been printed in the U.S. It's an adaptation of the Faust legend as a samurai period piece. And you get some examples of his art. He is to manga what Kirby is to American comics. Everyone learned from him, and the people who are drawing manga are either copying from him, learned from him, or are trying not to draw like him. Kind of like how with American comics for the longest time, you either drew like Kirby or you were reacting to Kirby by, no, I'm going to draw more realistically. I'm not going to draw this dramatic foreshadowing, foreshortening, and all that stuff. So he is like that for Japanese manga. And I've read very little of his work, but I want to. It's one of those things where I've heard his work is incredible and I need to learn more. So that is the book I am getting from Ablaze.
Let's see, who else do they got up? Oh, Frank Miller Presents. He's a premier guy. Opus has moved from the back of the book into the premier part. A couple things I've talked about before. On page 241, I never say it right. Evosense. I talked. The series came out based from the Grammy Award-winning rock band. Here's the trade.
Evanescence.
Thank you. Echoes of the Void. And then on the next page, Frank Frazetta's Dawn Attack, the trade paperback. So if you weren't picking up the comic, you can.
We got the preview of in the Free Comic Book Day.
So I just thought we'd point that out since we pointed it out when they were coming out as comics. Here's your chance. Now, the next publisher changed its name because it's called now Massive, but it used to be Whatnot at the end of the book. And I was like, oh, we got a new publisher. And what tipped me off was the fact that one of the books that they're offering happens to be one that last month was under Whatnot. And that's on page 254, Crashdown. I recommended the first issue, second issue of 3 issues. This month on page 248, they have a 5-issue series called The Plot Holes. Superstar artist Sean Gordon Murphy, known for his groundbreaking series Batman White Knight, is doing an all-new tale of world-hopping adventure. Plot holes are a squad of fictional warriors who transport themselves into the pages of other books using their unique skills to save the plots in order to stop them from being destroyed. And Cliff is their newest recruit, and this is what caught me because at first I went past it. Cliff is a comic creator who just realized his world isn't real. In fact, it's complete fiction that literally exists inside a novel. The other members are misfits like him, pulled from unpublished books that couldn't be saved, a manga samurai, a barbarian tiger, a kid from a comic strip, a vampire assassin. Outclassed by the other members, Cliff sets out to prove his worth to the plot holes as they fight to save as many books as possible. A number of variant covers. There is a Walt Simonson Beta Ray Bill homage cover that looks good, although I'm kind of drawn to the John Somaveri. Sorry, John, I slaughtered your name. It's not a podcast if I don't slaughter somebody's name, right, Curly? So I like that's kind of a what's his name? Calvin and Hobbes type riff almost. Yeah. There's your blank cover. You heard I talked about that. There's more on the next page, including a artist edition variant. Can't afford that. A couple foil covers and some pages of art. Thank you, massive. I absolutely adore it when you do that because oftentimes that what's caught my attention and made me go back and decide this is definitely going on the buy list. Anything else from any of the premier publishers that we might have overskipped?
Nope.
All right. Now, and I hate to say it, the rest of the guys.
Starting off with Dark Horse.
Yep.
Page 263. We've got Tales from the Crypt, Tales from the Crypt Volume 4. So we are winding down Tales from the Crypt as a trade paperback series. Pick them babies up. They're only $20. Then also Eerie Archives number 3. This is still worth picking up. It's still before Archie Goodwin left, so it's still very, very, very good stuff. Reprinting the issues 11 through 15 of Eerie for $25. But what's at the bottom is the most important book all month, Joe. Grendel Devil by the Deed Master Edition. What it is, Matt Wagner went back and added 120 pages to this book. This is the Hunter Rose story that started the epic century-spanning Grendel saga. This all-new reimagining of Devil by the Deed. Wagner brings his decades of experience in artistry back to this famous narrative. Over the years, Wagner has expanded on the story of Hunter Rose, and now he weaves the most dramatic of those elements into a brand new graphic novel. Grendel, Devil by the Deed, Master Edition is Matt Wagner at the height of his artistic and storytelling prowess. 120 new story pages. The signed and numbered limited edition, they have it listed here. Don't bother. It is already sold out.
Oh, that's the one I would have gone for. You
Guess
bastards.
What? Guess what, Joe? It sold out in less than 20 minutes.
I can believe that.
20 minutes. And all he did was announce it on his Facebook page with a link. Sold.
Yeah.
And really, that was all I had from Dark Horse.
For me, I'm going to recommend if you've got a fan who absolutely loves Lego. On the next page, 264, Lego Space, 1978 to 92. It's a kind of a reference type book talking about the different things that they have. This is when Legos got away from the brick and build your own and started getting more creative. certainly something they've been doing ever since. So if you have a Lego fan, this might be something to consider picking up for a decent Christmas and or birthday gift. And now, IDW.
I had nothing.
I had two things, and let me see if I can find them. Page 268, the Atom Family Bodies #1. And this is in the original Charles Addams type cartoons from the original comic strip. So if you're not fans of that, how dare you? Wednesday Addams doesn't feel like she fits in anywhere, not even at home, after she discovers a beauty magazine in her Uncle Fester's room that tells her all about how she should look and act. Doesn't keep her down for long, however. She quickly realizes that rather than change herself, it would be more fun to make over her family and force them to accept the societal norms they all normally reject. This is reprinting the IDW one-shot, the spin-off from the animated Addams Family movie that features all your favorite characters, and of course, Wednesday. And there's a new macabre cover. It looks like it might be a one-shot. And then if you haven't already and you're a fan of Bloom County, underneath it is the Bloom County Library. I have the hardcovers. Bloom County was absolutely my favorite part of a newspaper strip. I would read it. I would go down the column and go back up so that Bloom County was the last thing I read. And I absolutely love taking them out every so often and just reading them. Across from there is Funny Things, a comic strip biography of Charles M. Schultz, which again, I read the biography that somebody wrote, but to see it drawn in graphic novel form could be interesting. So again, these are a couple things on, well, not the Bloom County since I already bought it, but these are things on my list once I figure out which omnibuses I can afford to drop. I obviously know I'm not picking up a Grendel signed anytime soon. Okay, Cory, wait a minute. Let's see, IDW, what else do I got? Wait. Yep, that's it for IDW. So they're part of the rest, but they're in the front of the book now. It's like almost every month Previews shuffles things around. I wonder what they'll do when they're not doing Image anymore, huh? What you got next for us?
The wallet draining continues, Joe.
Oh, I bet you I know. Go ahead.
Page 274.
I'm there.
The Simpsons Treehouse of Horror Ominous Omnibus Volume 2. Dead Time Stories for Booze and Girls. The first volume was fantastic, reprinting the Treehouse of Horror comics that every year was one of the best comics of the year. It would be Simpsons comics done by other artists. Here we go. We got it again. Let's see. The artists that will be in this one are Kyle Baker, Ian Boothby, Dan Barrington, Gary Duggan, Pia Guerrera, Peter Cooper, Carol Lay, Terry Moore, Steve Niles, Brian Posen, James Robinson, Tone Rodriguez, Scott Shaw, Jim Woodring. 400 pages for $39.99 hardcover with a die-cut slipcase. Let me repeat that. 400 pages, hardcover, die-cut slipcase, $40 without a discount. Do it!
Get some.
Joe?
I'm in Ahoy, and I'm just going to point out something I already bought as a comics book. Down on the bottom there, The Gimmick trade paperback. The Gimmick, of course, is a dark comedy. Pro wrestling camp Shane Bryant's ring persona, his gimmick, is forgettable. He's a nice guy, but his secret is more colorful. He has super strength, and when he accidentally punches his fist straight through his opponent's brain in front of 2.4 million horrified viewers, everything changes. So if you didn't pick up number 6 right above it, here's your chance to pick up the trade. Don't make me tell you this again.
Joe, go to page 283.
Are you looking at Calvin and Hobbes?
Calvin and Hobbes Portable Compendium Box Set. Now, they've put out a box set before, but it was a big honkin' monster.
And if you were lucky, you would have found that thing for $25 at Barnes and Noble.
But now they're putting it out as a slipcase. What is it? A slipcase
Portable
box set.
compendium. Yep.
It's smaller size, $19.99, 244-page trade paperback books. It has over 500 comics from the strip's debut through 85 to 87. This is the first of 7 sets to be released. This is probably the best comic strip of all time. I have read a lot of old comic strips. I love a lot of old comic strips. I honestly think Calvin and Hobbes was the best comic strip of all time.
Oh, definitely. Definitely up there.
Joe?
In American mythology, which starts on page 276, they have 2 books this month I'm going to recommend. The first one is Bombshell and Tom Tom. In 1938 England, while performing aerial stunts, American pilot Samantha Bombshell Cartwright aeroplane is struck by a meteorite. After landing, her plane curiosity gets the better of Sam as she goes to investigate the meteor's crash. She finds an 8-foot-tall automation who she eventually calls Tom Tom. Not able to communicate, Tom Tom becomes Sam's bodyguard along with M5 agent Terrell Wilkinson and MI5 scientist Professor Rockwell. They encounter Nazi spies, ancient religious artifacts, and alien races. Bombshell and Tom Tom's a fast-paced, action-packed adventure comic, the kind you used to love. Come along for the ride. You won't be disappointed. And number of variant covers to choose from. And on page 286, I caught this one just because of the writer, Fabian, I say his name? Niaseja. And artist Chris Batista are doing the Outer Space Men, with a bunch of different covers to choose from. They have to come together to keep us from falling apart. From the farthest reaches of interdimensional space come diverse and heroic aliens. Together they form a peacekeeping team, ensuring the safety of Earth and the entire galaxy. Plus, Mel Merkrantz, the Outer Space Men, Galactic Files. A lot of different variants. You get some gold-plated coins. You can get a pin. If you're, since I'm not buying a Grendel signed limited hardcover, I could go for perhaps the Outer Space Men color sketch cover, which looks kind of cool. So, anyways, keep an eye. American mythology, and in the pages in between, I missed. They have a bunch of other stuff as well as some of their old stuff. So, keep an eye on that. Cory?
But if they announce a book, do not hold your breath waiting for it, because Don McGregor's been done with all 4 issues of his Zorro miniseries, and they still haven't printed issue 2.
That's okay. I didn't want to get too negative. There's a number of publishers here that don't seem to be wanting to publish new stuff, but are really pumping out the old stuff. We'll get to a few of them.
On page 291, we get a new Archie 100-page comic and one of their little trade paperbacks, which is the Best of Archie Musical Madness. You've got front row tickets to the concert of the year with this special edition volume of Archie's all-time best-selling Best of Archie graphic novels. This one is all about the Archies. They're the hottest band of the last century, with tours that have taken them around the world, the catchiest hit singles, and a dedicated fan base around the globe. These are 256 pages of stories about the Archies. And then that 1,000-page prestige, those 1,000-page are about the size of a digest. The Archie stuff is drawn very simply, so it's okay if it reduces down to that size. You get 1,000 pages of comics for what? $16? $16. I throw these in the car in case I ever have to wait anywhere, because hey, it's 1,000 pages of comics. And the Archie stuff, the quality is always going to be, you're never going to read an Archie comic and go, that was better than Watchmen. But you're also never going to read an Archie comic and go, that was the drizzling shits. They're solid, entertaining sitcom comics. I enjoy them. I think that these are not just a great buy to have 1 or 2 laying around, But also, if you know a kid who's between like 8 and 12 and you give them one of these, they're the happiest little reading monsters you can imagine.
Oh, yeah.
Because
My
they
mom,
just got 1,000 pages of comics.
they used to buy these digest size. They'd let us pick out ones, and then they would feed them to us on cross-country driving journeys when we went from
Yep.
Minnesota to Grand Canyon or Minnesota to Disney World or wherever. I'm going to push back a couple pages. The first one I want to talk in Archie, 289, they're doing a collected of all the 7 killer comic books they did, which is kind of neat, even though I just picked them all up for like $1 during a sale somewhere. So if you've never read them, they're kind of fun to read. But on page 288, Cory, how many times have we mentioned something on this podcast that somebody has just gone and taken?
All the time.
And this, didn't I mention something about taking Dylan Dalton and making him like a time traveling, dimension hopping person?
Yes.
Well, there you go. Strange Science. Chilling Adventure presents Strange Science OS. Danny Malloy is Jinx Holiday's best friend, and where one goes, the other is sure to follow, even if that means through hell and back and forth through the depths of space and time. When Danny receives a mysterious message from a former friend, Dilton Doily, Danny is horrified to learn that he's built a time machine that's gone terribly wrong. Now the three of them have been transported to a warped version of Riverdale where nothing seems right. So again, not quite what I recommend, because we did see the time hopping, dimension hopping way back in, what did they call the Archie series where one married Betty, one married Veronica?
Life with Archie.
Yep, because he was like in the first issue, and as far as I know, no other ones. Well, this might be the start of that. I'm just saying, Archie, good job.
Now finish up Afterlife with Archie.
Well, let's not get
Riverdale's been canceled.
Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Cory, do you have a copy of How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way?
I do not. I remember
if you do, you can get the current printing on page 296 from Atria Books.
Shall I tell the story behind this book?
Yeah, we've been doing a lot of sidebarring on this, so let's go there as well.
John Buscema was a teacher as well as an artist. He would teach every so often there was this high school in New York that actually taught comics. And what he did in the late 90s, he took his class and turned it into a book. And that is what Draw Comics the Marvel Way. Now, I don't know if the first comic shop that you hung out at, were there snarky people there who would make snide remarks?
Not really, because Butch and Gruber were there.
One of the snide remarks that we used to make was, how to draw comics the Marvel way. 1, buy tracing paper. 2, get some Jack Kirby art. 3, profit.
Dun, dun, dun.
That's how Rich Buckler learned to draw comics the Marvel way. Good afternoon. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Joe?
Let's see. Page 300. Dun, dun, dun. AWA. Now, you can buy it now or do like Cory does. Wait till all 6 issues are out of The Madness, written by J. Michael Straczynski, penciled by ACO. Sarah Ross' godlike powers made her the perfect candidate for the world's toughest wet work jobs till her government employer decided she wasn't needed anymore. To close the books on Sarah, her handlers decide the smart move is to assassinate her, along with anyone who happens to be nearby. Now stark raving mad and laser focused on revenge for the murder of her family, Sarah faces an army of superpowered operatives determined to stop her. They have a little code there where you can scan and get a preview of it, as well as a couple different variant covers. But this one actually sounds intriguing. And of course, they will probably have a trade if you're so inclined to do it that way.
Joe, go to page 339.
Dun, dun, dun. All right.
From Fantico. Famous Films, The Horror of Party Beach Facsimile Edition. Horror of Party Beach was a low-budget horror movie that tried to cash in on the beach party craze, so it also had music. And Jim Warren put out a magazine. Bruce Jones and Wally Wood kind of got stills from the movie and turned it into a magazine that told the story of it. It is, let's see, it's called Pictodrama. Basically, it's fumetti of the movie. The movie is terrible. The magazine tells the story of the movie, and it is hilariously terrible. A very rare book indeed, because there for a while, both Jim Warren and Harvey Kurtzman thought that fumetti, which is basically turning pictures into comics, was going to be huge, because over in Europe it had become huge. National Lampoon even did it with their photo funnies, but it never caught on in America. I am picking this up for the sheer goofiness of it. I can't tell you how many times I saw Horror of Party Beach when I was a kid, because it was public domain, so the local TV channel could show it when they didn't have anything else to run. Joe?
On page 308, under Blood Moon Comics. Comic book trivia number 1. A young comic book fan makes a wish to only ever have to know comics. He is teleported into another dimension where he, now in the role of the reader, must prove his worth by answering 150 comic book trivia questions. And it's polybagged, so no cheating. Cory?
If you go to page 355, more Bone Tall Tales graphic novel. Jeff Smith's award-winning Bone Saga, continues with the sequel to Tall Tales. Smiley Bone, Phone Bone, and their rat creature Bartleby take a group of young scouts to a legendary landmark where the Bone Cousins found when they were kids. They share stories around a campfire, spinning tales of trips to the moon, the delights of quiche, and Imagine Monster come to life. An encounter with the two stupid rat creatures gone horribly wrong. This has stories by Jeff Smith and Tom Signowski, illustrated by Jeff Smith, San Sakai, Katie Cook, Matt Smith, and Scott Brown. Brand new book coming out from Graphics, which are the people, I think they are connected to Scholastic. More Bone stories, Joe.
Happy, happy, joy, joy.
No, that's Ren and Stimpy.
Doesn't matter. I'm happy, happy, joy, joy. But we got more to cover. Still in Blood Moon Comics on page 310. Usher of the Dead, number 1. Tiago de Silva, minimal edition. Imagine meeting death. What would you say to him? What would he ever have to say to you? If there's anything you'd regret, I tell you now to get that straight. Cyril is coming. He's got a plan. Understand you are part of it. Is he good or evil? Time will tell. Granted, $12.99 for 32 pages. That's not like I'm buying a Grendel signed and numbered edition.
You're bitter. You're very bitter.
What? Me? Never.
Because most of my money is gone already. There's not a lot I have left here. So spinning through.
All right. While you spin, I'll try to catch up because I'm still on page 323. If you have never, ever read The Great Gatsby, here's your chance to read an illustrated edition. This is through Clover Press. And I read it back in high school. I know there was a graphic novel just came out. You know, there's no excuse. Just pick it up.
Now, I read it in high school and didn't like it. And then I read it in my early 30s and loved it. And I think it's one of those books you need to have some life under your belt to really grasp what the story is. I think for me, and I've talked about it without going too far, I was impressed by the idea that when the guy was in the library, and I think it was just a no-name guy, wasn't a protagonist, I don't think it was Gatsby, but he was like, oh my gosh, look at this, real books, which signifies to the reader at that time that this wasn't a phony millionaire. He had actual books in his library. He just didn't have shelves of books to make it look smart. Yes. And of course, the big thing was that was the big thing to tell that the teacher, her name was Sister Jaren,
And she made a big point of that. And that always impressed me because every time I pile up my omnibuses or my epic collections, I keep thinking, man, when I win that lottery and get a real house, that baby's got real books in it. So that was kind of her big reveal. So I told my then girlfriend, Chris, when she asked this question, raise your hand and give her the answer. And she did. And Sir Jared, of course, I was like taking the wind out of her sails. And she looked at her and said, huh, your older sister must have told you that. Nope, it was me. So, causing trouble
Joe,
wherever I go.
My next one is on page 433, a new book from Tomorrow's. So you know I'm going to buy it
Comics
anyway.
Compendium.
Yes.
Oh hell yeah! I was on that. And you talk and I'll talk because I've.
Author Stephen Freed shares the story of the meteoric rise of the Shanes Brothers California-based imprint Pacific Comics, which published such legends as Jack Kirby, Sergio Aragonés, Steve Ditko, Neil Adams, Mike Grell, Bernie Wrightson, and Dave Stevens. From its groundbreaking 1981 arrival in the fledgling direct sales market to a catastrophic precipitous fall only 4 years later, this tells the inside story of comics of the publisher of comics such as The Rocketeer, Captain Marvel, Ms. Mystic, Gru the Wanderer, Star Slayer, and more. Pacific Comics started as a comic shop, became a comic distributor, and then a comic publisher, and then it all fell apart. And it fell apart fast to the point where they had books that were ready to be printed and could not pay to have them printed. One of those was a Gru special, which was the Gru comic that was published by Eclipse. So yeah. I'm looking forward to this. I've heard all sorts of stories about the fall of Pacific Comics, but I really want to get information from the inside because they were publishing some fantastic stuff. Twisted Tales, Alien Worlds, Gru, Star Slayer, The Rocketeer, the book that I have in my hands right now, Destroyer Duck. I
was going to save this for freaking, but I'm going to go on to it now because when I first started, this is my golden age of comics, Pacific Comics. I was lucky enough to have a local comic shop that bought Eclipse Comics, and I was able to order these and get them in. So many times when I'm on Facebook, I listen to people, oh, I haven't bought comics since 1990. I haven't done this. I haven't. Well, you know what? We're still explicit, right?
Yeah.
You're a fucking moron. I mean, you really need to get a previews catalog and really look at it. If it wasn't for that, in Advanced Comics before it, I'd have stopped reading comics in the 1980s. There is so much cool stuff being published beyond DC and Marvel, and I love the stuff being published by DC and Marvel. I cannot buy it all. I mean, I've got literally 15 more things to talk about. Pacific Comics, this is probably why I love independent comics, because I read The Rocketeer, I read Captain Victor, I read Miss Mystic, well, at least 2 issues that came out. I read Gru, I read Star, I read all this stuff.
For me, I remember when I first went into a comic shop, and this was the summer of 1982. I had not heard of any of these indie books. I just knew that Marvel had direct sale stuff. And all of a sudden, there are two new Jack Kirby comics. Now, they weren't that good, but I understood why. And the ideas in them are good enough that many different publishers have tried to mine them for ideas.
Or reprint them.
But then First Comics, and I bought everything First Comics printed.
Yeah, same.
Everything First Comics printed. It was like opening a whole new world, and it was, oh my gosh, it's not just Marvel and DC.
It wasn't just superheroes.
Yeah.
Yeah, now, I definitely recommend this.
My next one's on page 441, Joe. From let's see, Vault Comics, Vampire the Masquerade, the complete series, Vampire the Masquerade is based on the role-playing game from White Wolf, which I played with Dangerous Dan Moore and his friends. This is the entire comic series by Tim Seeley and others. It has, let's see here, all 10 issues of Vampire the Masquerade, Winter's Teeth, all 3 issues of the never-before collected World of Darkness Crimson Thaw, 30 pages of original role-playing supplements, etc., etc. It's the whole thing, 448 pages for $30. Well worth it. Well worth it. Joe?
All right. I'm still back on page 332. A new publisher's popped up that I don't recall. I think it's Distillery, DSTLRY. They have one called The Devil's Cut. It's on page 332. It's Introduction to Distillery, a new publisher redefining creator-owned comics. In the aging process, the whiskey that evaporates is called the Angel's Share. But the most potent spirits are captured in the wood, the Devil's Cut. This is Devil's Cut. Unfiltered stories from the most fearless creators. Let's see. Mirka Andolfo, Brian Azzariel, Becky Cloonan, Lee Gabrett. I mean, there's just a ton of people there. 72 oversized pages printed on premium paper. High proof work from our founding creators and friends. Not a lot really, but I will give it a shot. It looks good.
The last book, as my wallet starts crying.
Oh,
well, it's been crying.
Still weeping.
Page 445, the Warrant stuff. They have a Shudder Spooktacular. This is an annual that reprints the best stories from a year or so. I wanted to point this out because, one, you could pick up this and get a good idea of what Warrant does. But also, our pal Butch had no idea that Warrant existed.
Whoa. And he's big on these movies.
Well, these are horror comics.
Yeah,
like the old Warren magazines.
Movies.
Yeah. So when we were at Mind's Eye, he saw, the big stacks of Vampirellas, Carmella, Shudder, and the previous one, The Creeps. He went, "What's this?" And I said, "Oh, this is a publisher run by Rich Sala, who's a huge Warren fan. He is putting out these books to kind of be the spiritual heir to the Warren magazines. He tries very hard to give work to Warren creators, including he had, I forget who it was as an editor who recently passed, Nick Cootie, who recently passed. And he goes out of his way to try to give work to any of the Warren creators, such as Angelo Torres, any of the ones who are still around, because he loves those books so much. These are solid horror comics. You're not going to read them. It's not Alan Moore level. It's more twist ending with the art, much like the Warren books in the 70s. The art could either be really, really good or just kind of passable, but they're still really fun reads. And for me, that's enough.
All right, sit down, boys and girls. Time to roller coaster through the rest, because I'm still on page 340 from Fair Square Comics. Not a New York love story graphic novel. Is it a dream or reality? He can feel her presence. He knows she's there, but she isn't. She takes him on a trip around New York and all the places he wouldn't go before the accident. From Coney Island to Lower East Side, he's turning the pages of his life with the one he loved, the one he lost. It's a tale of emotions, grief, and a love letter to the city. Dream or reality? It's not a romantic comedy, it's a drama. Tale of two lost souls with the Big Apple as its witness. On page 346, as I flip forward, I'm in Fantagraphics. X amount of comics. There it is. The most famous, never completed masterpiece in comic history. Images comic 1963 by Alan Moore, Steve Bessett, and Rick Veik is finally given the irrelevant and completely unauthorized 72-page climax no one ever asked for. I've been watching Don Simpson talk about getting this done. It's done. Come get some. And now I don't even know if I have the original 1963s lying around.
They'll be easy to find.
Yeah, they're not terribly expensive.
But they're also well worth reading. They are so much fun.
You know, and that's why I think I'd probably have them, because they were probably lined up waiting to finish. Let's see, page 348. Oh, there it is, right in the corner in the spine under Floating World Comics. Night Cruising One Shot. Tells the story of Ricky, a rebellious youth, getting up to no good on the dizzying highways of LA County late at night. Written and drawn by Harry Nordlinger. Night Cruising is a dark and harrowing comic about the things that go on our vast urban sprawl when everyone else is asleep. I'm usually on the eBays. It's a story of light, shadows, and everything that lives in between, told in dazzling black and white. Caruso? I'm not sure how to pronounce that, baby. Let's jump up to page 353. The Antagonist from Godhood Comics. Married supervillains. Oh, you had me at the first two words. Destructions. It's Destructus and Ultima. They're struggling to protect their family and keep their past a secret, decades after their retirement. But with the world still after them, the Eval, E-V-A-L, family must band together in order to survive. The concept just blew me away. I love it. Next page, 354. Marry Me a Little graphic novel under Graphic Mundi. Marriage doesn't define a relationship unless you want it to. Marry Me a Little. In Marry Me a Little, Rob Kirby, the writer-artist, recounts his experience of marrying his longtime partner, John, just after gay marriage was legalized in Minnesota in 2013. So we got a local connection here. This is 2 years before a Supreme Court decision that made gay marriage law of the land. It's a personal story about Rob's ambivalence, if not antipathy, towards the institution of marriage, how his loving relationship with John, the life they share together, set against the historical political backdrop of shifting attitudes towards gay rights and the institution of marriage. Got humor, candor, and I just like it because what caught me again, the local connection there. Jump to page 359. We're in Humanoids. The Shadows of Thule, Scotland, 2nd century AD. Roman general manipulated by a necromancer awakens an ancient plague in an attempt to conquer the people of the north. What got me as I'm flipping through, you got a nice interview with the creators and then pages of the art. That's what sold me on this one. Well done. Page. Oh, where we got? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm still with Humanoids on page 365. 3 books that are interesting. 2 we've talked to before. The Twilight Man, talking about Rod Serling and the birth of television. Bela Lugosi. Now,
Bela Lugosi.
Not my fault. He can't pronounce his name right. However, above it, All Tomorrow's Party, the Velvet Underground story, an exploration of the group the New York Times calls arguably the most influential American rock band of our time. It's the Velvet Underground and the complicated relationship they shared with legendary artist Andy Warhol. These are like 3 books. You almost have, I mean, if you have them in your comic shop, you're going to catch somebody that, you know, just like, oh, I didn't know they had a book on this. We talked about it before, but starting on page 374, Kenzer and Company are going bi-monthly. Is that what they're doing?
I think it's either bi-monthly or 4 times a year.
Yeah. And
even if they say they're going bi-monthly, probably they'll come out 4 times a year.
Yeah. But this is their beginning of that, because you notice the price doubled and the pages double. So it's not like, oh my God, I'm paying more. Well, yeah, but you're going to be paying the same. So I just wanted to point that out in case somebody balks at not buying it. On page 388, we've already talked a bit about The Simpsons. This is one of those books that when I had my comic store, I had it as a reference book up under Mango, Collecting The Simpsons, the legend, the merchandise and legacy of our favorite nuclear family. And it's just one of those things, like a lot of times somebody brings something in, I'm like, I have no idea where this is from. Reference books like this would definitely help. So if you have a Simpson fan or you're a collector, definitely pick that up. Cory, go to page 391. This is a book. I'm not sure if it's going to last very long. It's called Amazing Fantasy 15 with some character called Spider-Ham? Man, I'm sorry. And all we got's a cover. It says nothing else. It's just, you may mock Peter Parker, the timid teenager. It will soon marvel at the awesome might of Spider-Man. I don't know. I don't think this is going to happen. But
people don't like spiders, but I will say this is an ad for Hakes.com. They are people who auction off high-end, and I mean high-end books.
Oh, aren't I the fool? Never mind. All right, let's go on to page 391, which I just ripped up. Dope. Oh, never mind. That had Amazing Spider-Man on it. Ain't I the fool? 396, which I did not rip up. I'm just mentioning because I'm in Oni Press. Another Rick and Morty one-shot. Rick and Morty presents The Science of Summer with some fun one-shot. So if you're a Rick and Morty fan, you definitely want to be on top of that. Page 402. And I wanted to get your reaction, Cory, because you didn't talk about it. Along came a radioactive spider. Strange Steve Ditko and the creation of Spider-Man. It's a biography, graphic novel, Spider-Man's web stories before his first drawings of nerdy teenager Peter Parker. It's under kids comics.
Yes, it is a kid book.
So
it is not one of the more researched books that will be coming out. It's very much a kid's book. That's why I kind of dismissed it.
Yeah.
There's so many academic Ditko books coming out over the next year or so.
And we talked about the one that we like that's coming. I think there's two.
Yeah.
And anyways,
the family is working with the creator on. That's the one I'm most interested in.
And this one I was curious, but I actually know who might like it. My next door neighbor dresses up as Spider-Man. So I might give that to him, say this is all about the creation of Spider-Man. He absolutely loved I don't know if I gave him an archive. It must have been because the essentials were out of print, but he loved the early Ditko Spider-Man ones. It makes me wonder, if you time travel and say, hey, you know what? Kids are still digging this stuff. My daughters digged the original Ditko Lee stuff. So on page 411, you knew the truth was going to come out. Orson Welles, Warrior of the Worlds. This is from Scout Comic. You've seen Orson Welles direct the greatest films of all time. You've heard his thunderous voice on the radio selling peas in the infamous prank War of the Worlds broadcast. But now, for the first time ever, the truth is finally revealed. I was trying to get for a hard thing, but I had a... Anyways, the broadcast was real. Welles lived a secret double life as filmmaker by day, interstellar warrior by night. Buckle up for our mind-blowing adventures as Orson fights the great galactic war, travels through dimensional portals, and faces the ultimate threat to the Milky Way. Unicron. Oh, I'm sorry. Still waiting for the Transformers omnibus. Okay, where are we? Page 331. I'm getting to the end here, so let's see. Oh, a Neil Gaiman toon graphic book. Neil Gaiman, Lorenzo Moratti, best-selling author, fine artist Lorenzo, joined forces to create Hansel and Gretel, a stunning book that's once as familiar as a dream and as evocative as a nightmare. You think you know Hansel and Gretel? Good luck. We already talked about the Pacific Comics Compendium, which I am super excited to get. On page 442 from Vault Comics, Resonant. It's a 10-issue deluxe trade paperback omnibus with a foreword by Gerald Murphy, director. A decade has passed since the first wave hit, unleashing humanity's darkest impulses and plunging the world into chaos. Paxton, a single father of three, must venture from his secluded haven there to restock the medicine for his chronically ill youngest son. He needs it to survive. When that somewhat routine trip goes awry, Paxton and his children, now separated, will battle everything in their path to reunite. This is the complete series in a $24.99, 288-page trade paperback. And that's the way we like it. Right, Cory?
Yes.
And in the manga section, I'm just going to point out, if you are a Jane Austen fan, check it out, because Manga Classic is celebrating Jane Austen with manga classics Pride and Prejudice, and Emma, and Sense and Sensibility. And there's also a Jane Austen coloring book. So, and now, flip that there previews.
Well, hold on there, Buckaroo.
Uh-oh.
There is one more. I don't have the money for it,
Uh-oh.
but it's coming out from Fantagraphics, so I'll be able to buy it at a later date. But I also know that it is public domain, so I may not have to buy it. And that is the John Severin Western featuring American Eagle. John Severin, in this issue, between his legendary EC work and his celebrated Marvel Comics, John Severin joined with Will Elder and Two-Fisted Tales writer Colin Dawkins to introduce a new historical accuracy to the comic book Western, collected here from the first time all of the American Eagle stories, drawn by John Severin from Prize Comic Western 85 through 113, plus Severin Draw Comics featuring the Fargo Kid, Black Bull, and the Lazo Kid. These are public domain, so if you go to Comic Book Plus, you can go down to the Publisher Prize, click on Prize Comic Western, and there they are. They're all public domain, so you can pick them up free of charge. This also means that if they have not been put out by Guandana Land yet, they will be at some point in the future. But this is a book I want to pick up because I know that what Fantagraphics does is they take the public domain comics and scan them and clean them up and do a lot of work to make them look as close to the original art as they can. It's a hefty price tag, but John Severin, inked by Will Elder, you're going to get some amazing comic art in that. And now,
while you're doing that, I was reading on the other page, something caught my eye. Things in the Basement from First Second Books. And this is, well, kind of like my basement. It's supposed to be just a normal basement, just some storage boxes, dust, you know, the usual basement stuff. But when Milo is sent by his mother to fetch a sock from the basement of the historic home they've moved into, he finds a door in the back that he's never seen before. Turns out the basement of his house is enormous. In fact, there's a whole world down there. As Milo travels deeper into the basement world, he meets with the many things, capital T, that live in the shadows and gloom, and he learns that to face his fears, he must approach even the strangest creature with kindness. And a soft cover for $15 or a hardcover for $23. Yeah, it's getting a lot like my basement. So cool. Now time to flip.
Sure.
Because of course this is for Brian, because he complained bitterly that we never, ever talked about toys in the Marvel side. So or in the preview. So I know he is buying every single thing we recommend because he wants to have quite possibly the coolest and scariest desk at work. So I got 3 things this month, Corey. How about you?
I have 1, and
All
I
right.
can't afford it.
Well, it's not for us. It's for Brian.
Good, because I spent all my money.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I spent the money for the next few months, too. And I spent all the money that Go to page 17.
Dun, dun, dun.
One of my favorite characters, Ghost Spider, in a 1/7 scale mini bust. You may know her as Spider-Gwen, but to the world, she's Ghost Spider, except they don't have her wearing her hood. This 6-inch resin bust. This 6-inch resin bust depicts a superheroine en masse with mask in hand, backpack on her back, and web lines flying, limited to only 3,000 pieces. This is a really good statue. I'm not a statue guy. When statues became really big, I had a cat who, Joe, what do cats do?
Oh, they like to see if gravity works.
And there was, when they did the Absolute Dark Knight, they gave away the Dark Knight statue because they had so many of them. And I brought it to the worst job I ever had. And there was one employee there who was incredibly passive aggressive. So one day I came into my office. This was a job where I had my own office. Came into my office and my Batman statue had been smashed and the pieces were on the desk. I could not prove it was her, but it was her. And I kind of said, oh, well, I guess statues are going to get knocked over no matter where I put them. Whether I have them at home and the cat knocks them over, or I go to work and some batshit crazy employee knocks them over. By the way, shall I tell the end of that story?
Sure.
That's the job that I quit where I just, after, I think I told the whole story at the time, but I had been told, I'd spent the whole summer putting all the information online. Because I said, we can't have everything printed up at people's desks anymore, because then if we change it, we have to reprint everything, and they have to go and they have to pull out the page that needs to be replaced, et cetera, et cetera. Everything needs to be online. They can look it up online. It's stupid to have all this paper around. This was 2011. So we spent the whole summer getting everything online. A week before the open enrollment, my boss said, I think everybody needs to have a folder with all of the information in it. I actually had to come in on a Saturday and Sunday because there were and print up. It was like over 500 pages. I had to print up everything from the web, from the SharePoint we had created, printed it all up, correlated it, printed it, put it in folders with dividers. Then over the weekend, the office was like, well, there's nobody here on the weekend, so the air conditioning's off. Middle of July. And it's just a nightmare. I was there, Saturday for like 5 hours, sweating myself sick. Sunday, I was there even longer, got it all done. Then Monday had the presentation. Here you go. Here's all the folders. Afterward, my boss wanted to do the debrief. At the debrief, you know what she said? I don't know why you printed all those up. All the information's online.
And that's, boys and girls, is why the trees are going to rise up and kill us all.
And that, I remember I was on my way home because I rode the bus. And when I got home, I got in my car, and rather than driving home from the bus stop, I drove back to work, took my stuff, left my key card, everything, with a note that just said, I quit. And I started working overnights at the group home because I would rather not be paid well than have to put up with that passive aggressive bullshit. And I know people who were there, and I guess there are horror stories of what my boss did. There was the person who was in charge of, I was in charge of benefits. Person in charge of payroll was told she had to get rid of someone because they were too heavy. Yeah, toxic environment. Glad I got out of it. All it cost me was my Batman statue. Joe?
I as you were doing that, I was going through my list, and I did we mention the nice House on the Lake Deluxe hardcover coming from DC?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That might be why I couldn't remember if we talked about it. Because I was busy on page 38 of the toy side. I figured Brian had a choice. He could go into the one corner, upper left, and get the Black Adam movie, Black Adam with Throne 7-inch figure for $19.99, or go kitty corner to the other side and be cool and get the Suicide Squad 2021 King Shark Dynamic 8 action figure for $117.99, which is the cost of buying all the individual toys to find those individual pieces to put the figure together. So you decide. They're both cool. One's cooler than the other, Brian. You be the judge. If that's not enough, go to page 51, and believe me, look how cool you would look to have the Grand Action big size model Mazinger Z figure from Evolution Toys on your desk at a mere $474.99. Brian, I know you can do it because it's not like you're buying a signed Grendel hardcover edition. Now, Cory likes his Ghost one way. I like mine the other. So go to page 71. Up in the corner, Ghost Ultimates, Papa Emeritus 2 figure from the band Ghost. That's a mere $55. So again, you're not buying the Grendel signed numbered hardcover. You can afford it this month.
Joe is so bitter.
I am very bitter. Thanks a lot, Matt. As if you ever listen to this here podcast. Anyways, that's it.
And I think we're at over 2 hours now. So here are the ads. Our newest sponsor is NordVPN. Let's be honest, if you're out on the internet, you need a VPN to protect you. There's all sorts of things going on the internet where people can track you. You could accidentally download a keylogger, all sorts of things. NordVPN gives the best security possible. It has a password manager which generates complex passwords, syncs across all your devices, stores your notes and credit card information. It also gives you 10 gigabytes of private cloud storage, secure files. It backs up your data automatically. But the main thing it gives you is peace of mind. It gives you peace of mind when you're out on the internet, when you're streaming, when you're playing games, when you're listening to podcasts like this one. It gives you safety anywhere at any time. It protects your online activity. You get full access to all content. And if you use the link go.nordvpn.net sh3ku, it'll take you to where you can get a great deal for a 1-month plan, a 2-year plan, a 1-year plan. They are our newest sponsor. We're happy to have them. And if you would like to sponsor something here at any of the podcasts on the Solitaire Rose Network, you can. Just email me, solitairerosenetwork@gmail.com. Thanks. Yeah, we're 2 hours and 18 minutes.
We've already done our freakings.
And if you think that I don't talk enough, here's more podcasts I do.
Oh.
The Solitaire Rose Radio Network is currently on a pause, basically because COVID-19 has made it so that I have to work a lot of extra hours at both jobs. But you can still go and listen to my other podcasts. Now, you're probably listening to Crazy Comics and Stories, which is the main podcast. But on this same feed, KRAYZCOMIX, is Solitaire Rose Radio, the solo radio podcasts that I do. I've done interviews, I've done short stories, I've done all sorts of things, and you can get to it right here on this same feed. I also do a podcast called Novelcast, where I take the novels I've written and turn them into free audiobooks. That's over at novels.solitairerose.com. Dangerous Dan Moore and I, and of course Wolfie B. Bad, give you bad advice over at badadvice.solitairerose.com. You send in your questions and we give you the aforementioned bad advice. And then myself and Adam Vermillion from For the Love of Comics do the Fantastic Forecast at fantasticforecast.solitairerose.com, where we go through the issues of the Fantastic Four, 4 issues at a time, to give the plot and commentary on each issue. That's not all. Yes, I'm crazy. I still, over at pwinsiderelite.com, every week on Wednesday, do a recap of the latest episode of AEW Dynamite. I write up what happened, and then myself and Anthony Pyrus will do an audio. Now, you can only listen to the audio if you're a member at pwinsiderelite.com, and if you're a wrestling fan, you should be, where we then break down the episode, talk about what we liked, what we didn't like, give it a grade, and let you know if you should have watched that episode. Those are the other podcasts here at the Solitaire Rose Radio Network. Thanks. And I think that's enough, Joe. I don't think we need to do a Freaking and Geeking. I don't think we need to do a retro.
There are 2 things I want to mention because they could be time sensitive. The first one, we talked a little bit about Neil Gaiman. The next, Neil Gaiman, Terry Pratchett, adapted by Colleen Doran, Kickstarter is coming up for Good Omens, the official and ineffable graphic novel. So go to Kickstarter and hit that button and it'll let you know when it launches. And also, For those of you who know, I talk a lot about the Jason Show, which is a local talk show where the guy, Jason Matheson, talks a lot about what we talk about, pop culture, leaning more towards TV and that, but he gave a pretty good review of the Flash movie and things like that. He's airing now in Chicago. So if you're a listener in Chicago, check him out. Might not be your cup of tea, but I've enjoyed it because he's a geek like us. That's it.
Believe it or not, kids, you've listened to us talk about how we're going to be broke all through August for 2.5 hours.
Yeah. And next month we'll probably be, we got nothing to buy.
And as we say every week, the comic we like the least, we still like better than the comic that you like the most. Joe?
No time for nothing else.
My son and his lovely bride went to the zoo over the weekend. The problem was there was only one animal there. It was a dog. It was a Shih Tzu.
I think I'm going to go look at some Deathmate covers.
Hit my music.